It is 8 years. That is 2,920 days since I lost my hero, my dad. In my mind, the feeling remains the same. I had 126 days after he left. That day was Christmas of 2004. That feeling. Today is Christmas, a day to celebrate and rejoice. However, I am sad and moody, irritated and losing my temper even over the smallest things. Is it the disappointment of a son who could not keep up with his promise to his father? A promise he made to his dad at his hospital bed in ICU. I still remember my last words to him on 30th July 2004. "Dad, get well soon. I will be back for Christmas and we will have a drink together and laugh over the whole situation. I love you, Dad." He acknowledged by pressing my hand and giving a very faint smile. A smile I will never forget. My dad, week after surgery, and being on the ventilator in ICU for over 12 days, was communicating to me by writing on a piece of paper. I was in a situation that required that I return to America the next day, where I reside and work, and Dad did not approve my plan of extending my stay in India to be with him. He is the one who always said,
"George, you need to take care of your work first."
He was very reluctant for me to come home for his surgery, because he thought an unplanned leave might impact my career. A career that had already gone to the dogs, about 5 years back, when I made a wrong career move. On that day, with Dad, in the 15 minutes we had together, we communicated a lot. He told me to be brave and courageous, and life must go on in spite of hardships. He told me that worry won't take us anywhere, and we need to face matters coolly and calmly. I still remember that fateful day, June 20th 2004, the day after Father's Day. I came back home after the Sunday Mass, and called my dad to wish him a happy Father's Day. When I called, my mom came on the other end of the line and I asked for my dad. He came onto the line and we started talking. We talked for a while and toward the end, he said,
"George, I have something to tell you. I had an X-ray and the doctors have said that there is a growth in my body, near thymoid gland, and I need more tests to find out the details."
I was shocked to hear that news. Deep in my heart I said it must be a wrong diagnosis. How can my dad be sick? He is going to be there for me whenever I wanted him. The days and months that followed were stressful and hellish. We started talking more often. As the tests progressed, doctors identified the growth as thymoma cancer. The diagnosis killed the spirit in me. Deep down, I prayed and begged to God, and hoped that it would not be true. For the first time, I realized that my fear was going to be true, the fear that I could not be around my parents, who made me what I am today, when they needed me most. The facts of life, and the truth of living in America, far away from home in India, where your parents live. Finally, the decision was made to undergo surgery to remove the growth. Even at this time, he was careful not to alarm me or worry me. He conveyed everything in such a manner, I failed to gauge the seriousness of the situation. A mistake for which I will never forget, and will never forgive myself. I remember my dad as a man of high values, honor, integrity, a loving husband, a loving father, a loving brother, a good friend, and above all, a good human being. One thing I remember most is the way he treated me all through my life. He believed that, until I was 5, I needed to be treated like a king, until I was 18, to be treated like a slave, and after 18, to be treated like a friend. He did that with me. Dad's philosophy made me the person I am now. My dad enjoyed music, carpentry, painting and drawing. He was a good handyman, and enjoyed the thrill and fun of all of his activities, as well as loving a good meal. He had an ear for music, and a talent to play any musical instrument. He could accompany any singer on his keyboard, even if he was hearing the music for the first time, a skill I always envied. When it came to his painting and drawing ability, there was this joke: if you wanted to find out who was the presiding judge for the case he was handling in the court, All you had to do was to look at the cover of the case file. He was so good at drawing, that he could draw the portrait of anybody, in no time at all. Carpentry was another favorite hobby. By working day and night, he even managed to finish a new project, just before he went for his surgery. He was quick in fixing things, and he did them with great perfection. I admired his perseverance in learning new things. He was the one who learned roller skating at the age of 56, and learned English music at the age of 58, and astrology at the age of 68. He was a good tennis and badminton player. He was well known in the nearby YMCA, YWCA and tennis club for all of these talents. Cooking was another talent we will all remember, especially when he made those tasty Chinese dishes. We used to tell our mom to let him cook. The only problem was he never cleaned the dishes, and he used a lot of utensils for his cooking. That drove my mom nuts, and we kids enjoyed seeing our mom going nuts over it. Dad also loved hunting. When we were young, we used to go out hunting with my uncles and cousins. He is the one who taught me how to use the gun. Unfortunately, I never became accomplished at that sport. Although a lawyer by profession, my dad also had a degree in physics. He had a good understanding of engineering, and knew a lot about basic medicine. He enjoyed reading, and therefore had read most of my engineering textbooks, and most of my sister's medical textbooks. We used to joke that if he took the tests along with us, his scores would be better than ours. At the time, it was with Dad that I shared my first drink. When my friends visited, they were surprised by the way we interacted. They even admitted that they wished they had my dad as their dad. I admired Dad for quitting smoking, as a way to tell me not to smoke, demonstrating his values instead of just telling me not to do something. I am proud to say that I have not smoked in my life because of him. Doctors in Sri Chitra in Trivandrum set the surgery date to July 16, 2004. Based on the initial discussions, I was not planning to make a trip to India for the surgery. Somehow, my heart was telling that I had to go see him. Since the news of his illness, I started going through all the things he had told me in my life, and a couple of things he told me made me particularly worried. When he was visiting us in Florida in 2000, during one of our father-son talks, he mentioned that he believed that he would not live past 72 years, the same age his dad passed away. Another time, when I visited India in 2002, he said that the chances were remote that we would see him again. When we worry about loved ones, we begin to see more meaning to all the discussions. On the 9th of July 2004, my cousin called me and told me that it would be nice for us to make a trip to India. We decided to leave for India at the earliest possible time. I was hoping to be there in time for the surgery. God was somewhat kind to me. We were able to get tickets that took us to Cochin on the 15th of July. I took a bus from Cochin and arrived in Trivandrum by 4 p.m., visiting hours at the hospital. I called my mom on the way from the bus station to the hospital, telling her that I was on the way. When she told my dad that I was coming, he was so excited he waited for me near the elevator. We had tears in our eyes when we saw each other. I hugged him for a while. He has changed a lot from the last time I saw him. He had mild swelling on the face, and had shaved off his mustache for the surgery. He looked a little tired. However, he was high in spirits and full of courage. We talked for nearly 2 hours. He was so popular with other patients and hospital staff, that when they saw us, they talked to us as if they had known us for years. One of the hospital staff came by and told me that even if they had not met me or my family or my sister and her family, they knew all about us. Dad was so proud and happy to tell them about his pride in his kids, and took every opportunity to tell all about us kids. During our visit in the hospital, Dad was busy telling me about things that I needed to do, things that he had taken care of for me, like my apartment in Bangalore, other property in Bangalore, what I would need to do with my home loan in India, almost as if he would not get another chance to talk with me about these things. I was a bit annoyed with that. At that time, I had been thinking We have a lot of time to discuss all this after surgery. Now, I think he knew what is going to happen. I still curse his knowledge of astrology, even though I don't believe in it. Sometimes, it makes me believe that there is some truth in them. Later, after his death, I heard from my dad's friends that he used to tell them that if he survived the surgery past the 1st of September, then he would live without any major health problems for a couple of more years. After visiting ours, the doctors called upon my mom and me to sign the consent form for the surgery. This is when I really began to understand the seriousness of the surgery. I was shocked to understand the seriousness of the surgery only hours before it began. It was too late to change the decision. I saw the hospital staff giving sedatives to my dad to prep him for the surgery next day morning. The next morning, before the surgery, when I saw Dad, he was sedated and weak. He recognized me and gave a faint smile, and showed signs for me to be brave. The surgery took about 3 hours, and after surgery doctors said it was successful. However, they informed us that the growth was worse than they expected, and they had to block one of Dad's blood vessels. From that moment our days of anxiety and agony started. We kept praying harder for things to be better. Family and friends helped us to keep going. After 5 days, doctors took him off the ventilators. In my belief, that was the biggest mistake that killed my dad. I requested them to give him more time to recover. Their attitude was, they know better than me. Yep. I'm still sore about that, with the doctors. On the other hand, I hope they try their best to save my dad. That will remain a big mystery in my life. Things from then onward are very hard for me to write. All I can say is that it was hell. In the interim, on the 29th of August, my family returned to America as planned. At the time, Dad was showing signs of improvement. As days went by, his condition fluctuated drastically, at times deteriorating and at other times, improved. I had hoped to see Dad and spend time with him during Christmas. At this point of time, we did not have the slightest idea that he would not be there with us for Christmas. The worst-case scenario appeared to be that he would need support and help, as it would be a slow recovery. When I called home on the 30th of August, I heard the worst news. My dad had developed internal bleeding, and the doctors were not very hopeful about his condition. My heart sank. I could not go and be with him, since my family was en route to Miami after their visit. I spent most of my time on the phone checking on his condition. Finally, as the hours went by, I started to accept the fact that what I feared most was going to happen. I started praying to God to give strength to my family and myself to face the unthinkable. On the 1st of September 2004, the decision to take Dad off of the ventilator was made. He was given the last rituals, and at 10:15 a.m. IST, the end came. I got the call from my uncle, saying everything was over. I cried for some time, prayed for some time, and was frozen for most of the time. I couldn't accept what just happened. It was night time in America. I waited until morning, and went to church to pray for Dad. One of the biggest miracles was that the sermon was about magic in life, and the priest said that when death happens in a family, we think of it as a tragedy. The magic of the life is that death in a family brings the family and friends together, and helps us realize how wonderful that person was. We tend to ignore and not to acknowledge the wonder of that special person. It sounded like Dad was talking to me through the priest. The next 38 hours, I was on the phone with my mom and my sister, discussing on the funeral arrangements, and providing moral support. I felt so helpless that I couldn't be there with my family. I made the decision not to go to the funeral, another tough decision in my life. During this time, another kind of crisis was brewing back in Florida, a Category 3 hurricane that was coming in our direction, and I missed all this news in the midst of my agony. When I came out of the house, I saw all my neighbors boarded up and ready for the hurricane. I was in no mood for boarding up, and I said to myself, Dad, take care of my family and me as you did all your life. Hurricane Francis, with wind speeds of 80 to 115 miles per hour, blew past our house, and we sustained only minimal roof damage. Dad took care of us, again. In another week, we had another hurricane, and again, Dad took care of us. Even after Dad left this world, I believe he is taking care of us, as he was taking care of us when he was here. It has been 126 days that he has left us. I believe he continues to guide and communicate with me by helping me make more sense out of things that happen around me. For the first 40 days after his death, there was a bird in front of my house every time I come out of my house. I believe it was his way of telling me that I am there for you. Today, when I was channel surfing in TV, I hit this channel, where they were having a dedication song to those who passed away recently. It is ironic, since this is a channel that I never watch or even think of watching. When I look back, I have a feeling that I know why he wanted me not to extend my stay in India. He knew that I didn't have the courage to see him sick, and he didn't want me to remember him in a sickened condition. My memories of him will always be that of an active person, who was in one place at one minute, and in another place in the next, taking care of everyone's problem with no problems of his own. I will always have memories of Dad being there for me when I was sick, confused, or in need. Dad was a man who never rested and lived for his family and friends. Daddy, I am going to miss you very much. It took 30 years before I started admiring you. That was when I started to realize what a wonderful person you were. Yes, I wasted 30 years to realize that. I used to tell my friends about your special talents, and took pride in you as you did about us. Daddy, you know that I love you very much, and I will need you to guide me through the rest of my life. I am expecting you to be there for me, whenever I wanted you, and won't expect anything less from you. Dad, take care of us from your heavenly abode. Give us the strength and courage, especially Mom, to go on with the good life you provided to us. Give us the strength to move on. Daddy, we will miss your love, guidance, music, jokes, cooking and everything you did for us. We know deep down in our hearts that you are there for us. My last request to you is to make me at least half the man you were, as a husband, father, brother, friend, and human being. Lord always clips the best, and it is the proof that you are the best. Time may heal the sorrow, but we will never forget you, and we will continue loving you. To family and friends, you are a legend and an inspiration. We all will miss you. Your son, on the day of Christmas 2000. For even today, the feeling is the same. Love you, and miss you, Dad.